Hello, I'm Ryan, and welcome to Legendary Tractors. If you grew up around hayfields in the 1970s and 80s, you already know this sound. That fast, confident chatter of a sickle bar, the steady hum of conditioning rolls, and that clean, even windrow stretching across the field like money on the ground. Before the haybine, haymaking meant steps. You cut the hay, then you came back later to condition it. Every pass meant more fuel, more labor, and more time with the weather watching you. The haybine changed that equation. Cut and condition in one pass. Lay the crop down right. Dry faster, beat the rain. New Holland wasn't just introducing a new machine here. They were creating an entirely new category, the mower conditioner. And once farmers saw that what it meant for efficiency and risk reduction, there was no going back. Hidden in the fine print of New Holland's late 1960s brochure is something important. The haybine is listed as being covered by several patents, including U.S. Patent 3375643. That patent is tied to a name that deserves more attention, Horace McCarty. This wasn't just paperwork. This patent became valuable enough that it ended up at the center of legal disputes between major manufacturers. In 1971, John Deere didn't just compete in the hay machine market, it went to court. Deere filed a lawsuit challenging U.S. Patent number 3375643, commonly associated with Horace McCarty and the New Holland Haybine. On March 31, 1975, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit ruled that the patent was invalid due to prior art. Art being that someone had already built one. A rehearing was denied on May 30, 1975, meaning that John Deere won the case and could build their own machines. This tells you just about everything you need to know. The idea wasn't just clever, it was disruptive. The ruling did not say that the haybine was ineffective or poorly designed. It ruled that the invention was not legally protectable once earlier machines, such as a machine built by the H.L. Cross Company of Tulare, California, that was manufactured in the 1950s, was considered. The interesting thing is that Cross had only built 7 machines. No patent that I was able to find, and yet John Deere managed to make the legal argument that the New Holland's patent was void because this machine had existed earlier. Sound familiar? I bet it does to anyone who knows anything about the Kinsey story. It's worth pausing here for a moment because Horace McCarty was more than just a name on a patent drawing. McCarty was part of the generation that helped turn New Holland from a respected equipment manufacturer into a global agricultural company. The haybine wasn't an isolated success. It was an early signal of the kind of thinking that would define the company for decades. McCarty wasn't just an engineer. He became a leader inside of New Holland, and in 1977, he was appointed to be president of the company. The company's biggest changes didn't come from standing still. They came from growth, acquisitions, and adaptations. During McCarty's time in leadership, New Holland expanded beyond its hay tool roots and began to solidify itself as a full-line agricultural equipment manufacturer. One of the most important chapters came when Ford acquired New Holland. That partnership gave the company global reach, deeper resources, and access to one of the largest dealer networks in agriculture. Ideas like the haybine were no longer just clever innovations. They could now be scaled worldwide. Later, New Holland would pass into Fiat ownership, setting the stage for what would eventually become CNH. By then, the company had proven it could innovate, defend its ideas, and survive major corporate transitions without losing its identity. When people talk about McCarty today, the focus is often on the haybine patent or his legacy with a twin-rotor combine. But the bigger story is that he helped shape a company that knew how to move forward, whether the challenge was a rainstorm in a hayfield or a rapidly changing global agricultural market. The patent also lists Emmett Glass as a co-inventor. He actually has several patents with New Holland as well. Other than his obituary, his biographical trail is difficult to document. I was able to determine that he had a lengthy career at New Holland, and his contribution remains permanently stamped into the Haybine's DNA. The early Haybine brochures are fascinating. The 1964 New Holland Model 460 brochure is doing two things at once. First, they're explaining what this new machine does. It mows, it conditions, it windrows. Haybine, mower crusher, extraordinary new hay machine. Now you can whip hay harvesting hands down. New Holland's new Haybine mower crusher sweeps through the tallest, thickest crops at speeds up to 8 miles an hour. It mows, it crushes, it even windrows. Second, they're selling confidence. Only the Haybine offers such fast, such gentle harvesting. Cuts, conditions, and windrows without damage to your crop. Excels in down and tangle crops. Ideal for heavy stands. They talk about plug-free cutting. They talk about straight-through feeding, full-width conditioning, and fast cure windrowing. And they talk about reliability and dependability. Then comes 1968 and the Model 461. Pretty much the same machine as the 460, except now we see the introduction of the chevron spiral rubber rolls that New Holland would be known for. This was a huge improvement over the rubber and steel rollers found in the 460, as hay drying time was much improved. Spiral rolls, a New Holland exclusive, intermesh as they turn. The results? Spiral conditioning action. You get the aggressive feeding action of a crimper plus the thorough conditioning action of a crusher, all in one. In fact, the hay is crushed with a gentle crimp. You get a fluffy, faster drying windrow or swath, one that lets you bale or chop sooner. By the 1970s and 80s, the Haybine wasn't new anymore. It was established. And the 469 in particular became something special. If you had one, you were a big-time operator. Kids noticed, neighbors noticed, other farmers noticed. That machine said you cared about your hay and you cared about doing it right. Well, sometimes. I have to pick on this picture a little bit. Looks like they are probably running an Oliver 1600 gasser with a narrow front end hooked onto the 469. In order to not flatten down the windrow, the driver is running the windrow between the left front wheel and the left rear wheel, which is in fact catching the windrow just a little bit. The other thing that is going on is that because he is trying to run the windrow under the tractor in this manner, the right rear tire is catching the unmowed hay just a little bit, causing the mower to leave a little streak. Yeah, that might have got a laugh out of my neighbors back home. I'm not sure why they couldn't come up with a tractor with a wide front end for this shot, but it is a little bit humorous in my opinion. So now we have the quintessential Haybine. It evolved into the 479 and the 488, which we will discuss in a few minutes. But to look at all those later models, they had the same look and they functioned in the same way. Additionally, they now offered a 7-foot 3-inch machine for smaller farms, along with a self-propelled unit for the big time operators. Now let's skip ahead to 1983. By this time, New Holland was offering a multitude of different Haybine models with features that fit nearly every farm of the day. There was the 7-foot 3-inch model 472 and the 9-foot 3-inch model 488. Both were built upon the 469 design from 1969. The 488 would go on to be sold until 2023 when New Holland ended Haybine production. 40 very remarkable years of perfection and performance. It worked, so why change it? Next up is the 474 and 489 models. This was something new. Its features were more in line with maybe a Heston or a Gale machine. Specifically, just the head floated rather than the whole machine, which made for better responsiveness when dealing with rocky ground. In the Finger Lakes of New York, we have lots of rocks, so this was a pretty popular machine back in the day. The 495 and the 1495 were both designed as high-capacity machines that would knock down hay fast. New Holland was still selling confidence as they talked about dependability, economy, deluxe features, and high capacity. But then they go one step further. They tell farmers that buying a Haybine pays twice, once during hay season and again at trade-in time. That's not an accident. That's marketing aimed straight at the coffee shop table. Performance gets you noticed. Resale value keeps your reputation intact. But real life always tells the full story. My dad owned a 495 in the late 1990s and early 2000s. He liked how it mowed. He liked the cut. But he hated the hitch setup for transporting down the road. To get from transport to field position and back again was a bit of a bear. That's the part the brochures never show you. In the early 1990s, I worked on a farm that ran a 1495, but it wasn't stock. They updated the header to 16 feet wide by adopting one from a speed rower. And here's the thing, New Holland's own buyer's guides list speed rower cutting widths up to 16 feet 3 inches. Farmers didn't just buy equipment, they engineered it. They mixed and matched. They squeezed every ounce of capacity out of what they had. Then comes the quiet warning sign. Disc mowers appear in the brochures. At first, in 1983, they're just another option. By the time you reach the 1994 New Holland Buyer's Guide, the tone has changed. Discbines are described as tougher, higher capacity, and able to cut through obstacles. This is the pivot point. The Haybine didn't fail, the industry moved. Once farmers started chasing capacity, disc machines became the future. And yet, the Haybine didn't disappear. It kept going, year after year, serving farms that valued that sickle cut, that familiar sound, that dependable performance. 2023 marked the final year of production, closing the book just shy of 60 years. The Haybine didn't just cut hay, it cut time, it cut risk, and it cut a permanent place in agricultural history. A 469 wasn't just a machine, it was a statement. And for a lot of farms, the Haybine wasn't something you just owned for a season. It was something you owned for a generation. If you ran one, tell your story below, because around here, that's the real story. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you have a great day.